Learning that these men, some of them criminal, had formed religious alliances in the town of Jeffersonville and surrounding cities, I also realized that there would be a set of core doctrines used to grow those alliances. In the Christian religion, especially in the fundamentalist Pentecostal sect of the Christian religion, incompatible core doctrine formed walls of division rather than open arms of unity. The religious connections who were aware of Roy Davis's now public history would have agreed on certain doctrines, some of which would have aligned with the central focus of white supremacy. Those in his congregation would have also agreed on certain doctrines. If not, they would have either ousted him, as a congregation did in Acworth, Georgia, or simply left. There was no shortage of churches in Jeffersonville and in the surrounding area. Many elders in Davis's church, including the prophet, would have not only agreed with these core doctrines, but would have also supported, promoted, and even taught them. When the congregation, elders, and religious affiliates transitioned from Davis to the prophet after Davis's sudden flight, the prophet would have naturally continued to promote these core doctrines in order to continue what Davis had started. From the looks of the articles in the newspaper, it was easy to see that these connections and these doctrines continued to exist well into the prophet's early career as an evangelist. One of the elders that transitioned from Roy E. Davis's Pentecostal church was a man by the name of George d'Arc. This was a name that the prophet mentioned in his sermons, and a man that many of the locals in the Jeffersonville sect of the message remembered. According to the documents found in the Clark County Courthouse, E.A. Seward, George d'Arc, and Frank Weber were the prophet's trustees when the Billy Branham Pentecostal Tabernacle's business entity began. These men, part of Roy E. Davis's inner circle, were now part of the prophet's inner circle. With Davis's lifelong focus on white supremacy, these men were likely involved. I was surprised when I began to research the core values of white supremacy, especially the core values of the historical version of white supremacy groups in the United States, such as the Second Ku Klux Klan. There were several research documents available on the subject of the Christian Identity Doctrine and its relation to white supremacy. As a Christian organization, the Ku Klux Klan had one fundamental doctrine: the notion that members were identified with the supreme race, which the Klan promoted as Christian. Supporters of the Christian Identity Doctrine believed that there were two bloodlines that resulted from the original sin in the Garden of Eden. In the Ku Klux Klan's version of the Christian Identity Doctrine, one bloodline, white, was supreme, white supremacy. The other bloodline, according to this theology, is inferior. Many white supremacists believe that the inferior race was a result of a sexual union between Eve and the serpent, while the other, the supreme race, was the result of the sexual union between Adam and Eve. In fact, this strange notion of sex in the garden was the basis for white supremacy campaigns against mixing races or interracial marriage. Stumbling onto this information both surprised me and made me ill. Surprised because, as a message believer, I was trained to believe that this doctrine was one that was unique to the message. Ill because I was only now learning its connection to white supremacy and realizing the many implications.